Mo Ling felt that there was just something that was a little different about Wang Zheng. She could not exactly pinpoint what, but she just felt that he was a little haughty. Even though he appeared to be very easygoing, but there was just this vibe where it seemed like he looked down upon everyone in the whole world. He had actually become a member of the universe's Genesis Coffee at his age. How great a genius was he exactly? Then why did he come to this military academy to study? What a waste! Mo Ling said flusteredly. This was indeed unfathomable. The main point of studying was for them to showcase their skills better, to realize their dreams. With Wang Zheng's current situation, concentrating on research would also allow him to reach the peak of mankind. In today's society, the status of a scientist was definitely one of the highest. Ling Luoyu forced a bitter smile. You must know that for IG this year, the solar system team got second place, and he was the team leader. Only at this moment did Mo Ling recall this fact. I think I did hear before about him being very good at using the Golden Wheel Battle King. However, I have not seen it before, so I am not sure whether he's worthy of the name. Actually, it doesn't matter if he's strong or weak. What does this have to do with me? Ling Luoyu said. He, does my little Luoyu have a lover now? It's also true that there are a lot of handsome guys over at the Zon grade. You can even get the attention of the ones in the Earth grade and Heaven grade. Since there's not much fun with those youngsters in the lower grades, why don't you introduce one of them to me too? Mo Ling teased. In this case, what about Hu Ba? He's also the manager of the student union. He seems really compatible with you. Luoyu, you stupid lass, how dare you laugh at me? Both girls were frolicking around while laughing for a moment, but Mo Ling nodded her head seriously in the end. All right, I know what you mean. Old man Gale is stubborn and serious, and you are also a filial granddaughter, but you are just not willing to sacrifice your love for this. Looks like we can only start from Wang Zheng's side. Leave this to me. Very soon he will know that studying hard every day to improve is the proper way to go. Romance and whatsoever is not suitable for a kid like him. I know that. You know that too. This way, Ling Luoyu also felt relieved. She did not want to find trouble with Wang Zheng as after all, they were total strangers. But she also knew that her grandpa had his good intention as he disliked most those who just brandished their rifles and swords and were all brawn and no brains. However, she did not see what was not good about that. Moreover, which person who had managed to enter the elite academy would have no brain? It was just that grandpa's standards were too high. Mo Ling sent Ling Luoyu out. Ling Luoyu pressed a button on the crystal bracelet that was on her right hand, and an exquisite flying device appeared in the sky. This was not magic, but a type of small-scale space crystal. It was said that if this type of thing was placed together in a great amount, it would cause space to warp and distort. Hence it had become a prohibited item. However, in reality, it still existed on a small-scale basis, just that these crystals were placed under strict control. Even in the army, it was also rarely seen, and was only used here in Inner Roland. Both the Heaven grade and Earth grade students were equipped with this. In fact, even the outstanding students of the Zon grade might also be equipped with it. All except those of the Huang grade. You like it a lot? Advance to the Zon grade as soon as possible. I am sure you would be able to do it. Ling Luoyu stepped onto the flying device. There were rays of lights flashing out of it, and then the runic flying device soared into the sky. The students of the Zon grade had fairly vigorous mental power and was already able to control such flying devices fairly easily. Even though the students of Huang grade and Zon grade were just one grade apart, their classes were not on the same campus. Generally speaking, they would not come over unless there was some special matter. Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan sat in the classroom. This lesson was on dissecting Zerg and humans and was considered to be the kind that was more disgusting, but compulsory to attend. The objectives were to better understand oneself and to better understand their opponents. At the same time, it also helped to facilitate treatment. As a warrior, it was necessary for them to understand body structures, especially their own body structure. To be honest, everyone was not too fond of this lesson. So long as it had to do with dissection, it caused people to feel utterly disgusted. However, in order to survive in this academy, this type of psychological factor was something that one definitely had to overcome. This dissection class was also a major subject and thus many people attended it. This was something that they could never run away from. Everyone would have to take these fixed classes. Yet while some people felt an extreme aversion for the class, there would also be some people who were extremely fond of the class. And indeed, there were individuals who had an intense passion for it present. Wang Jung was extremely happy today. Firstly, he had made progress with the atomic burst. Other than that, he also found a method to utilize the wind flame wheels he had envisioned. After he became proficient at it in the world of saints, he would likely be able to use it in the real world as well. Mainly, he just did not want to become a maniac who destroyed public property wantonly. This time round he still had a sofa to sleep on, but next time, he might really have to sleep on the streets if he messed up. Can you please stop staring at your own finger? Other people would think that you have some strange hobbies. Zhang Shan kicked Wang Jung from behind. Wang Jung was speechless. He was just pondering about stuff, and there were people observing his actions as well. It seemed like everyone was looking at him. Geez, he certainly did not have any unusual hobbies. He immediately sat upright and awaited the teacher's arrival. Bang! D*MN it do you not have eyes? You stepped on my foot. Two people had collided into each other at the door. Everyone felt that the atmosphere was slightly tense. Sorry, I didn't see it. The person who was wearing spectacles and around 1.6 meters in height apologized immediately and went back to his seat with his head lowered. The other person was around 1.8 meters in height, and his expression was full of arrogance. What are you looking at? Majjul was from Leah Sphinx. He was originally in class Huang too, but because he violated the school rules, he was being punished and was forced to go to class Huang 7. He had already stayed here for more than half a year, and this made him feel really depressed. Despite the fact that he had already been here for 2 years, he was still in the Huang grade and this situation had exacerbated matters. If he was not able to advance by a grade in another year, he would be asked to graduate. This was second only to being forcibly asked to leave the academy, and it was equally embarrassing. However, there was nothing that could be done as not everyone would be able to enter the Zon grade. He felt very indignant and his temper flared. Then, Majjul saw the situation in the class, and his face changed. He straightened up himself and walked over to Wang Jung's side. Wang Jung had spotted this seat immediately when he came it. It had a good line of vision, and since it was empty, he thus did not stand on any ceremony. Now Wang Jung kind of knew why everyone was looking at him. It had nothing to do with his finger. Majjul walked over, and he bent down his body abruptly. He was glaring at Wang Jung face to face, like he wanted to kill Wang Jung with his glare. In the laboratory, the atmosphere suddenly solidified. However, there were still quite a few people who wanted to watch this scene. Not everyone was afraid of Majjul. Majjul was no different from a mad dog to them and there was not much hope left for him. In a few more months, he would probably be asked to graduate. After all, he had already been in the college for nearly 3 years and indeed knew his stuff. Usually, no one would argue with him as his usual hobby was to bully the people who belonged to the non-battle type. For example, the bespectacled boy who had bumped into him just now. Scram! After quite a while, a word came out of Majjul's mouth. Dumbass, a newcomer actually dared to snatch his seat. Did he know anything about the rules in the class? Zhang Shan, who was sitting at the row behind Wang Jung's, could not help but to laugh. He did wish for the whole world to fall into chaos, but this respected team leader was really too calm. Actually, Zhang Shan also knew that with Wang Jung's mentality, he was uninterested in arguing with a kid. The problem was, even if one did not go and find trouble, it did not mean that trouble would not come and find you instead. Zhang Shan was holding back his laughter. He actually wanted to see how Wang Jung was going to deal with this. Wang Jung stood up. The people around him sneered. Yet another terrified dude, but thinking about it, it was really not worth the effort to argue with this sort of rabid beast. The students attending this lesson were not just from class Huang 7, but there were also students from other classes. However, they were all unconcerned about it since it was not in their personal interests. Wang Jung stood up and said very seriously, "Fellow classmate, I'm a newcomer who doesn't know the rules. Why not we go on out and you can tell me about the rules? This way, it will also allow me to become more sensible." Majjul was stunned. His mouth arced back into a smile. "Bastard, you have quite the temper. Fine, today I will teach you, this peasant, what the rules are like." Leah Sphinx, the nation which Majjul belonged to, was a big nation. They held an absolutely strong influence in the elite Academy X, which was also the reason why the others were not willing to provoke them. Majjal could teach others lessons, but the bullied's fellow country mates might not be happy. Some people could teach a lesson themselves but would never allow outsiders to interfere with their internal affairs. Thus Majjal would be careful with the ones he bullied. But one glance at Wang Zheng's appearance would let one know then he clearly came from some backwater place. Wang Zheng went out with Majjal clucking his collar. Even though Zhang Shan was not making any noises, but you could see that he was dying from laughter from the huge smile on his face. F***ck, Zhang Shan, aren't you guys friends? Hurry up and go help him, Leah couldn't help but to comment. Haha, if he really needs help, it would be useless even if I went, Zhang Shan laughed. Zhang Shan, we know that Wang Zheng's mecha skills are really awesome, but it would be useless for such a fight. Ison couldn't help but to comment. Majjal is a gangster, he has a strength type ability X and is super good at fighting. Zhang Shan laughed even more happily, is it? That's pretty good. Yet it was extremely quiet outside despite the two of them going out, there was not even a single noise made. The people of the elite academy were all dignified. If it was not a big spectacle, they would not bother to stand around to watch. However, there did not even seem to be any movement. What was going on? After a while, Wang Zheng came back, with Majjal following behind him. Majjal's face was pale. Be attentive in class, and don't cause any trouble. Yes, I know. Go on, we are all classmates, and should all follow the rules. Don't take up seats, and the person who reaches earlier will get the seat, Wang Zheng laughed. Yes. Majjal lowered his head. Wang Zheng waved his hand, and Majjal immediately ran to a corner seat and hid at the back of the classroom. He buried his head on the table. Wang Zheng returned to his seat. Zhang Shan couldn't help but to ask, how did you take care of him? Take care of what? We are all classmates, I was just talking sense to him, and he also agreed with me. When he was done speaking, Wang Zheng started looking through the relevant information on dissection. For human anatomy, it was mainly to understand the functions of all the different parts. It also involved some people who had transformed in cyborgs, including their unique characteristics in battles. When it came to the Zerg's anatomy study, Wang Zheng had actually felt that it was redundant as currently in the scope of the Milky Way Alliance, these insects had practically been exterminated. They were absolutely not a threat to the mankind's army. Perhaps they were still learning it because of the extremely severe catastrophe that they had happened in the past. What happened between Wang Zheng and Majjal was just a small episode. The teacher of the dissection class had arrived, and the classroom immediately quietened down. How should it be put? Ever since they came to the elite academy, the feeling that the teachers had been giving to everyone was they were all esteemed and respected individuals. They had been like this even 20 to 30 years ago. Even when the old Gale dressed up, he also exuded an aura of grace. But this person before them. If someone was to say he was not a butcher, no one would believe him. In fact, he had even carried his butcher blade to class. Everything unexpected could be found here. He was known as Teacher Butcher. He had a fierce-looking face and a big bald head. It was a little unexpected that he did not have any scars on his face. What made him unique was this weird smell that emanated from his body. It seemed to be stinky, but yet also not. This weird smell was probably due to him spending time being immersed with all kinds of carcasses. Immediately, all the girls present felt that they were going to vomit. They were perhaps not afraid of battles, but Teacher Butcher's arrival had thoroughly lowered their expectations as to what they ought to fear. Even if these individuals had felt that the cruelest battles seemed aesthetically pleasing and death was a form of art in front of this man, no one dared to speak. Most of the people who had attended this class before were already numb to the smell. Some experts had come prepared with internal nose cleansing strips to allow them to lose their sense of smell in the next few hours. It was truly too nauseating and would cause one to lose their appetite. If eye masks were allowed, there would probably be many people who would want to try it. Bang! Teacher Butcher's cleaver was slammed aside and it rested on the dissection table. Now, let's begin class. Bring in everything. His assistants carried everything in one by one. Zergs. Today's lesson was on the dissection of Zergs. They were disgusting creatures just like big cockroaches and were laying flat on their belly. Looking at their sizes, they should be larvae rather than adult zergs. Now, everyone, get into groups of 6. Today's dissection is on the first stage larva of the blue cockroach zergs. Wang Jung, Zhang Shan, and Leah, the 3 of them immediately gathered together. However, they were short of one person. Wang Jung looked around and said, "You, come over here." Matchjul almost vomited blood when he was called. He had already utterly lost his face, but yet he did not dare to resist. That damn guy was simply not a human. Everyone divided into groups very quickly. Teacher Butcher nodded his head. As there are new students around, hence this lesson would be mainly a recap. It's very simple, just dissect the thing in front of you into their 5 main parts. For those of you who are familiar, go ahead and do it yourself. For those of you who are not familiar, watch my steps closely. As he spoke, Matchjul eyes lit up. Dissecting zergs was his favorite activity. Zhang Shan wanted to vomit. Shit, why does he look as if he was on a date with a beautiful woman? There was indeed someone who vomited. Even geniuses were not able to endure such a feeling. But of course, it was still tolerable for most of them. Wang Jung was looking at Butcher's dissection attentively. It was truly natural and fluid. This was probably the so-called state where one was able to dismember an ox as skillfully as a butcher. Overlooking the disgusting appearance and smell of the zergs, this proved that Butcher's level of understanding of zergs had already been brought to the point of perfection. There were masters in every profession. Student Wang Jung found it really admirable. The zergs were very hard, but Butcher managed to dissect it very quickly. This showed that he understood thoroughly the weaknesses of the zergs. The rest of the people also pinched their noses and started trying. Once the shell was cut open, the smell of the whole room made everyone even more speechless. And for the good of his students, Teacher Butcher had specially shut all the doors and windows tightly, so that they would be able to enjoy the authentic smell. Leah went to the side and vomited. This was earth-shattering. The faces of the other people were also pale, but in any case, Zhang Shan had muddled along with Wang Jung, and was trying his best to endure it. However, his hands were also shaking. Majgul's expression was still all right. After all, he had been here for over 2 years, and had indeed gotten used to it. Moreover, he was actually quite fond of this subject, as this was the only subject which made him feel like he was able to do well in. Seeing that no one was doing the task, Matchjul glanced at Wang Jung. "How about I do it?" Wang Jung nodded. Matchjul immediately cut it with a knife excitedly. Squeak. Andre and Ison could not take it anymore, while Zhang Shan was still holding out. Wang Jung immediately discovered that something was not right with that cut on the stomach. He took the knife from Majgul's hand. Even though Matchjul was no match for Wang Jung, he was still quite conceited when it came to dissection. "This thing is very hard, it is different from the zergs seen outside." Wang Jung cut through it with a knife, and sure enough, he was shocked. The hardness of the shell was totally different. Even the density of the carapace was also completely different. Wang Jung had been through 2 major zergs battles, once during the solar system selection, and once during IG. The level of zergs encountered during IG was much stronger than that kept in the solar system. However, if compared with the zergs before him, it would be pale and insignificant by comparison. For zergs, their fighting strength depended upon their hardness and density of their bodies. Looking at the blue shining light inside its dead body, this was not in zergs that was usually seen. Even though it was dead, one could still imagine how frightful it would be if it had turned into an adult. Wang Jung started dissecting. He had watched and was very clear about the butcher's actions. Even though he was not as elegant, dissecting zergs was still not a problem. The more he dissected it, the stranger it was. Everyone else was also doing it very strenuously. Not only that, but Wang Jung also felt that something was not right, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly why. Once the whole zergs had been cut open and spread out, Wang Jung put his hand into it. Zhang Shan finally could not take it anymore, and immediately rushed over to the corner to clear his stomach. Matchjul was very cocky, as he was able to find some dignity only in dissection class. While other people vomited and were badly battered, he was very calm and collected. However, Wang Jung actually did not seem like a newcomer at all. But the following scene unnerved even the most resilient. Wang Jung took out a little bit of liquid from the inside of the worm, Then, he tasted it. The taste was fishy, very fishy. According to his understanding of zergs, other than tasting unpalatable, the majority of this kind of living creature was actually edible in reality. In addition, they were also pretty nutritious. It had to be said that the zergs were also a miracle of the universe. They absorbed energy and transformed them into what they needed. It truly was a super valiant ability. Hence, the bodies of zergs contained a certain amount of energy, and if the number of zergs reached a particular number, they could drain a whole planet of its life and energy. To Wang Zheng, this stuff was very good for energy replenishment. Apart from the taste being really bad, the amount of energy inside the zergs' body was actually way more than normal zergs. For zergs, after they die the amount of energy inside their bodies would decline rapidly. However, for this type of zergs, it seemed that it had died not too long ago. Furthermore, they were preserved very well. The energy might have leaked by almost half, but the remaining amount was still more than the usual living zergs. And this was still a larva. If it was an adult, its fighting strength would be no small matter. When Wang Zheng came back to his senses, he realized that all the people around him had subconsciously kept a distance from him. This was too damn disgusting, and only Majtel could withstand it and stood by his side. While Wang Zheng was very indifferent while he rinsed his mouth and washed his hands, Butcher's fierce-looking face did not have too much of an expression. He walked over and asked, "How was the taste?" "It's quite different from usual," Wang Zheng said truthfully. Butcher was shocked, but a smile appeared on his face. Immediately, all the other students had forgotten about vomiting. What was this sorcery? A butcher also knew how to smile. It indeed looked uglier than him crying. "It comes from a different source. I have all kinds of flavors in my warehouse. Do you want to give them a try?" "Sure." Wang Zheng nodded. These zergs were definitely different, and this also meant that the ordinary mecha might not be their opponent at all. So, where did it come from? With the reproductivity of zergs, and if they also had such fighting strength, this would absolutely be a huge threat to mankind. "You follow me, while the rest of you continue." Butcher wiped his cleaver and put it onto his waist. "Watch over them and record down their performances." "Yes." His few assistants promptly nodded. A teacher was indeed a teacher. The authority was not something that you could question just because of his appearance. Butcher's expression seemed very happy. It was like he had found a confidant. Leah's face was pale. "I have decided that I will never eat with Wang Zheng ever again." Zhang Shan clenched his teeth. Wang Zheng must have discovered something. Looking back at those days, he had also tried a little of the thigh meat of a zerg with Wang Zheng. He was also his brother, D*MN. He couldn't lose face. After that, Zhang Shan put his hand in, and took out a piece. He clenched his teeth, squinted his eyes, and sent it towards his mouth. Everyone was staring at him tenaciously. Majtel also opened his eyes wide and was staring. This fellow. At that moment, when the distance of the zerg meat was still no less than 10 centimeters from Zhang Shan's mouth, Zhang Shan dropped the meat and once again rushed to the corner of the wall to vomit. Wang Zheng took out his own flying device, and following Butcher's flying device, they reached Butcher's warehouse. "This is my art collection. There are 18 main categories in total, and 239 types of zerg. They each include the various stages of growth, and these are treasures that can't be found on the market." At the moment when Wang Zheng spoke, Butcher had found his confidant. However, student Wang Zheng had no interest about this collection hobby at all. He was only interested in finding out more about his unknown enemies. "Didn't you already realize that these insects are different from the ones that are commonly seen?" Butcher said. He was very casual outside of the classroom. The exterior appearance of this huge warehouse was very ordinary. However, its interior was technologically advanced. Some of the corpses required refrigeration, while some of them had to be bottled. It had well-equipped facilities, and all sorts of data. The staff inside were all busy with their work. Some of the insects were even alive, and everyone was monitoring them in order to get first-hand information. The real laboratory was over here. Get yourself changed into work attire. Some of these zerg are still quite troublesome to deal with. Teacher, from all the insects that we had seen, we have never seen this type of breed at all. Hee, that's for sure. Even though you are just a Huang grade student, you will still come to know of some of these things sooner or later. It's also good to know about them in advance. Butcher brought Wang Jung to change into the protective suit provided and together they walked into the laboratory. As everyone knows, during mankind's second war with these insects, we had planned to exterminate them. As a result, we obtained a decisive victory and completely destroyed the Zerg in the solar system. At the same time, we also prevented their invasion. However, that was not really the actual case. Even though victory belonged to mankind, but the Zerg had opened up their pathway leading towards the Milky Way. Wang Jung was shocked. Everyone knew that the Zerg was hard to get rid of. During the time when the Zerg attacked the solar system, they had only sent a portion of their forces. Nobody knew how many Zerg there were exactly, and where they came from. But there was one thing that was certain. If the main strength of their army came to the Milky Way, mankind would be completely unable to hold them back. Even in the current situation, their speed of evolution and reproduction was just too scary. How is this possible? Butcher shook his head slightly. He did not seem to mind at all. There is nothing impossible about that. However, there is also no need to worry excessively. The entrance from their world is actually just under our feet. Student Wang was stupefied. The insects had indeed been destroyed, and the passageway where they were intending to open up to travel through had also been sealed off by us. However, we still can't belittle their evolutionary abilities. They had evolved a type of Zerg with spatial powers. They used themselves as a medium to open up a space passageway. This belonged to the highest levels of Zerg. Yet when mankind discovered it, this passageway had already been formed and could not be sealed off. Later when mankind gathered their strength to build Roland Garros, the original intention was actually to block up the hole. However, after that we realized that even though the passageway had appeared, something strange happened. The insects had suffered some kind of obstruction and were unable to come through. But for us, we were actually able to pass over to their world. Butcher laughed. Don't tell me that these insects are from the other side of the tunnel? That's right. These insects are quite special. Their bodies contained a secret that mankind had never ever grasped. For example, the aircraft that you had just used, it was actually also obtained through a reverse-engineered research of these insects. But of course, it was also combined with the technology of Atlantis, Butcher said. Teacher, you are a biologist? The staff around would all nod when they saw Butcher, while the soldiers would salute respectfully. It was very evident the Butcher was just a butcher in name. Ah, did Gale that old man not tell you? I'm also a member of the universe's Genesis Coffee and could also be considered your senior. Otherwise would it have been possible for a newcomer to come here? Butcher gave a forced smile. However, you did give me a pleasant surprise. Don't listen to Gale that old fellow. The direct purpose of science is for us to protect our homeland. And to ensure we have the power to protect our homeland also means we need to battle, for us to acquire even stronger power. Upon hearing this, Wang Jung became relaxed all at once. So he was actually one of them. This would make things much easier, as initially there were still some things which he was too shy to ask. Senior, the fighting strength of these insects far exceeds those insects outside. So much so that they might even be at least 3 times stronger than those wild insects. At the same time, there are also some things about their bodies that I can't really understand. Wang Jung immediately asked. Butcher was indeed a little stunned by Wang Jung's acuteness. If it was under a circumstance where I had not known about you and your background, I would surely had thought that someone had told you about all these beforehand. The insects here have a very strong ability to defend against pure physical attacks and energy attacks. However, when it comes to ability X and mental attacks, they are very effective against them. In other words, the students of our elite college are able to go into another world to hunt for these things? Butcher looked at Wang Jung unenthusiastically, while Wang Jung's eyes were burning with fire. Don't get too excited, that is something that has only got to do with the heaven and earth classes. Specifically, it has nothing to do with you. Wang Jung coughed. He was extremely confident about his fighting strength, but it also would not be good for him to act pretentiously in front of Butcher. To enter there, you must have an ability X of mid-grade C rank and you must be able to sustain your ability X output steadily. Otherwise, even if you were able to enter, you would also not be able to come out. Senior, since these insects are unable to come out, then how did they come over here? Wang Jung suddenly asked. We have a special vessel. They are being brought over using spatial crystals. You should know about this. All these while, we have been researching on what was obstructing these insects from coming over, but it was to no avail. Hence, someone had proposed a conjecture. However, this has yet to be verified. On the bright side, using our spatial crystals, we were able to bring these corpses out. These things had also provided us huge amounts of research material for our biological and genetic technology research. Butcher was full of love as he looked at the ugly and scary insects inside the bottles. Wang Jung was able to understand this kind of expression. He had seen it before on many people's faces. Gale, Old Merchant, Zhang Shan. They all had this face when they were doing the things that they loved. Their tastes were also different. They said that this was known as looking through one's appearance to perceive what lay beneath. He senior, you see, even though it is the first time that we are meeting, but after all, we are still comrades who are in the same pit. Wang Jung was choosing his words carefully as he was really not familiar with Butcher. Boy, if you have something to say, just say it. I'm just wondering if I can come here often as I'm also quite interested in this. It was clear that not just anyone would be able to come into a place like this, as some of the technologies involved public safety. Furthermore, what Roland Garros controlled exceeded what entire countries did in certain fields. Wang Jung finally understood why all countries were so conniving towards Roland Garros, always trying to extract more concessions from them. It was indeed too unique and they possessed just so much more. This is something that can't be decided by me, Butcher replied seriously. Actually, regardless of what expression he gave, he always looked serious. Although one should not judge another by his or her appearances, with his looks, the probability of him entering the universe's Genesis coffee was actually about the same as Wang Jung, which was to say, borderline impossible. Wang Jung felt a little regretful, but Butcher immediately said this to him. Whether you want to come here or not, it is of your own choice. As a member of the universe's Genesis coffee, you would of course have the privilege to come here and go freely. Do you think that it was just a title? Student Wang was stunned. The privileges he had were immense. No wonder so many people had cracked their heads for ways and wanted to find a way to join them. This was not just an issue about reputation and status, but it also involved a lot of privileges. For today, just take a look around as you wish. I still have things to do. Butcher patted Wang Jung's shoulder. He had given Wang Jung a special lesson. Even though the universe's Genesis coffee was started by Mu Fengchun, nobody had the authority to manage anybody else. Many times, things were done as they felt more like obligations. However, its entry requirements were stringent. One must be like-minded and reach their minimum standards. Until now, there was no one who broke the standards. However, with regards to Wang Jung's entry, there were many people who had their doubts. As after all, those who were able to join were all rulers from their respective fields, and how much capability could a kid possibly have? However, so far, no one had ever broken the rules, and it was even more unlikely for anyone to joke about such things. Butcher had only wanted to meet him. He actually did not have any other intentions. But he really liked this boy. Actually, when he saw Wang Jung's concentrated look, he had already understood why he was able to join and had also felt reassured. As for how this boy wanted to torment himself, that would be his own business. Student Wang Jung was like a fish back in water. It was simply a Zerg museum over here. However, it was also no good for him to interfere with other people's experiments. They were all very focused. Over at Zhang Shan's side, they had also ended their class. Experimental classes were different from surviving in the wild. During a life and death crisis, people might not have as much apprehension, but with the current situation, it was very difficult. Wang Jung was brought away by the butcher, into the butcher's warehouse. In Zhang Shan's mind, it was a place with internal organs piled up in pillars. Just the thought of it made him retch. He really applauded Wang Jung's appetite. Did that fellow secretly give up his sense of taste and smell? However, that was clearly not possible as Wang Jung also really loved to eat, especially when Zhang Shan was the one paying. The World of Saints, Hail Cloud League's headquarters in the ice-cold forest. The whole league evidently felt that something was not quite right about the atmosphere today. Mainly, Snowly seemed to look absolutely dazzling today. It was inexplicable. Regardless, it just felt that Snowly was in a really good mood. Of course Snowly was in a really good mood, as in the end, she had still managed to catch someone in the palm of her hands. Snowly, has there been some good news? Someone has finally appeared. Sao was Snowly's good friend and she was also from Elite Academy X. However, she had already been here for a year and a half, and was currently in class Zon 3. Snowly gave a little smile. There was a type of indescribable anticipation in her heart. Someone? Who was it? Sao blinked. However, with Snowly's temper, if she had wanted to say so, she would have said it all out directly. And since she did not say everything, it meant that she did not want people to question more. Even though she was from class XUAN3, she was just an average genius. As compared to Snowly, who was born in the year of the Ice Dragon Dance, there were many things that she was lacking in comparison. Just considering their future potential, even 10 of herself would also not be comparable with Snowly. Sao, what's up with Snowly? I guessed she had just met her old friend here. Sao shrugged her shoulders. Reddington frowned. Old friend, did she say who was it? Sao glanced at Reddington. He was from class Zon 1 and not only that, it was possible that he might be entering the Earth grade class soon. Furthermore, he had always been harboring ideas towards Snowly. Nope, she didn't. Reddington walked out with a cold expression. A few girls ran over to inquire about the news. Snowly's gossip had always been popular in the Hail Cloud League. A few of the beautiful ladies of the Hail Cloud Alliance gathered together and were whispering to one another. Snowly laughed. Actually, she did have feelings for Wongjung. It was not just due to his strength, but his masculinity was really too attractive. As for boyfriends, it was not that she didn't try dating, but to be honest, she just did not feel any attraction. She wasn't pretending to be aloof from politics and material pursuits, and it also was not that she wanted her boyfriend to be invincible and the richest in the world. Actually, it was all about a kind of feeling which she had when she met the right person. When other people saw her, it was like seeing an enchantress. Guys who were not willing to resign to their fate had asked Snowly before whether she was actually looking for a date or an opponent. And Snowly's answer was very direct and also a real tease. She said she was looking for a guy who would be able to conquer her, not just someone who she could conquer. For a man, a woman who was too outstanding would be a curse to him. Some people said that she was like an arrogant lone flower, but actually, she also did not want to be so strong. She was also a girl. She would also like to find a guy who was pleasing to the eye and just have a passionate romance. She had tried before, but in the end, it only lasted 31 hours. Just 31 hours, and she was tired of the handsome boy, who had a sunny personality and also a bright future. At the split second where he had wanted to hold her hand, she dumped him decisively. Just at this moment, she received a system message. Charcoal has rejected your friend request. Additional message. Snowly's curved lips became flat and straight instantly. The invitation which she had sent out was with a display picture. Even if the picture was not clear, but how could he reject a beautiful lady? Wongjung just logged in and had received more than 10 friend requests. Initially, he would still accept friend requests. However, he realized afterwards that having more friends meant that you would also have more of the various kinds of invitation. Earlier on, there was a girl from the disciples level who had invited him to help beat a trial of a variation of the ant's nest. And after he rejected it, he was cursed by the girl that he would be destined to die alone. So, after looking at the notifications, Wongjung had chose to ignore most of them. However, one of the friend requests came with an additional message that made Wongjung question himself for a moment. Old friend, let's meet up. He immediately replied with a question mark, then he rejected the person's friend request. Where would there be any old friends here? Never would he had thought that in just 2 seconds, the person sent over another friend request. This time round with an additional message of, I am your girlfriend, whom you had discarded after you had finished making use of me. What? Wongjung almost fell down. His heart suddenly thumped hard. Could it be Aina? Wongjung gave a faint smile. So, it seemed that he had still not completely let go of this matter. It was not an easy and straightforward matter. However, this temporary heart flutter was for just a mere split second. How could it be Aina? Regardless of the ID, or the tone of speech, it was all not of Aina's style. He continued to reject the request, with an additional message. I have so many girlfriends, which one of them are you? The notification still came back within seconds. Additional message. Wang Zheng. 3 exclamation marks. It fully conveyed the person's anger. Wang Zheng gave a little smile. All right, he shall stop trifling with her. There were really not many people who would know of his ID in the world of saints, and even lesser so for girls. He was also very curious as to who that person was. Tick-tick. After he added her as a friend, the person sent a message over instantly. Ice-cold forest, northern region, in 10 minutes. You are? Wang Zheng tried to reply to her message. However, the person had activated the automated reply. Hello, I am currently busy. I will reply your message in a little while. After coming to the elite academy, he was able to meet with familiar strangers every day, and meeting Butcher today had made him extremely happy. Looking at the atomic burst trial, Wang Zheng decided to take a break again today. He reached the northern region of the ice-cold forest. Stepping on the snow on the ground, there were crunching sounds heard. There was no trial, and he was here just to look for someone. Wang Zheng realized that he started to like this peace. It was the feeling of the forest being peaceful while cicadas were chirping, the mountain being secluded while the birds were singing. The feeling of rest. If there was a bottle of beer at this moment, it would be even better. Wang Zheng. Snow Li was smiling as she looked at Wang Zheng. Wang Zheng turned around. Snow Li's breath seemed to have merged into one with the ice and snow surroundings. If she had not taken the initiative to speak, it would also have been hard for him to realize it. Snow Li, so it was you. Wang Zheng stared blankly, looking at Snow Li's fair little face and lack of a mask. It felt like she was a red berry flower, unyielding to the snow, which still stood and blossomed for a long time. She was even prettier now than during IG. As they were no longer enemies, she had seemed even more charming than before. Why, are you sad that I am not your princess girlfriend? Snow Li gave a little smile. Even though she had not paid attention and followed up with what happened between Wang Zheng and Aina, but she also roughly knew what would have happened. From the follow-up of the solar system, the emphasis of the reports were on Lear while neglecting Wang Zheng. On top of that, Aina had suddenly left for Atlantis. It seemed that there were many barriers between the both of them. Hee, how did you know that I was charcoal? Wang Zheng was really quite curious about this. The world of saints did very well in terms of privacy. Even if it was the Milky Way Alliance who had wanted to obtain their personal information, it would also have been very difficult. You are so obvious, you would be recognizable anywhere you go. Just that, why charcoal? How did you came up with this name? It's a little unlike your taste. I thought you would have named yourself heroically dominating all or something. Sigh, your ID, promise. It really fits your style, simple and clear. Wang Zheng laughed. After meeting an old friend from IG, he was in a happy and relaxed mood. Somehow, everyone had gathered together again. In all likelihood, Olivius, and his other old friends, would also all be stirring things up in the world of saints. Tell me, when did you come to Inner Roland? Snow Li's words were shocking. Wang Zheng's eyes widened again. How did you know that I was at Inner Roland? There is a hidden rule in the world of saints. It's the rule of proximity. When you log into the temple, the geographical location of the people that you often accidentally meet are actually also in close proximity as you in reality. I have already met you a few times. If you aren't in Inner Roland, then that would mean our destinies are already intertwined. Snow Li blinked her eyes. She meant what she said. For a girl of the Hail Cloud Alliance, if she was uninterested in someone, she would be silent and not act. However, once she had determined her target and acted, she was definitely like a cheetah. A cold external appearance, with a zealous heart on the inside. Wang Zheng was almost unable to tolerate Snow Li's fiery glance. He immediately changed the topic. Oh, does that mean that you are also in Elite Academy X? Oh right, during IG your ability was already in the upper grade C rank. So how is it now? It's a secret. So which class are you in? When did you arrive? And, Snow Li felt that she had so many questions that she had wanted to ask. This was unlike her usual self. However, it did not matter as Wang Zheng's temper was very in tune with hers. It would be more normal to have more things to talk about between friends. Hee, I just reached recently and I'm in class Huan 7. As for the other questions, I will answer them next time. What about you? How long has it been since you came to Inner Roland? Snowly laughed. Somehow, she did not feel that she was being a little too passionate, not in the slightest bit. She shrugged. I came here 6 months ago and currently, I am staying put at Class Huang -1. Class Huang 1? Does that mean you know Mo Ling? Wang Jung was just casually trying to find a conversation topic. Snowly's expression immediately became like a smile and yet not a smile. Even I cannot help but to love Mo Ling upon seeing her appearance. She immediately took up the class monitor position when she came. Why, are you interested in getting to know her? Ah, nope. It was just that I happened to have met her once. I'm just casually asking, that's all. Wang Jung sensed a hint of competition. He did acknowledge Snowly's strength, but he did not expect that Mo Ling would actually be able to make Snowly feel guarded against her. It seemed like she was also not so simple. It seemed that even though the significance of IG was profound and long-lasting, it had not really identified all the elites. Despite Wang Jung's denial, Snowly still insisted on giving a more detailed introduction. Originally, Mo Ling was also supposed to participate in the IG. However, due to some unknown reasons, she renounced her participation on her own accord at the last moment. Also, there was other information. Stop, I am really not interested. Well, alright then. Let's not talk about her. Snowly's tone clearly hinted that he should never mention Mo Ling's name in front of her ever again in the future. The two of them cannot exist together. A conflict between women. Wang Jung had no intention at all to intervene. If there's nothing else then, just meeting her for a few minutes, and Wang Jung was actually starting to miss the tedious atomic bursts a little. Snowly interrupted Wang Jung's words of wanting to go back. Of course there is something. Don't you want to know about how I knew that you were charcoal? Wang Jung's gaze shifted. He was still really curious about that. Actually, it was very simple, your wind flame wheels and the golden wheel battle king. Wang Jung heaved a sigh of relief. A secret that had been revealed would no longer be a mystery. You saw my trial? Like I said, we are pretty fated to be with one another. That was actually the trial that I was still struggling to complete, but in the end, it was effortlessly passed through by you. Once I saw the posture you had and how you launched those vicious attacks, I knew immediately that it was definitely you. Snowly continued to blink her eyes fearlessly. She was full of decisiveness. It was fate that allowed them to reunite once again, and she was the first to find it. The Hail Cloud girls, when necessary, they would be even hotter than the girls of the Astina Federation. Furthermore, even though they originally looked frosty, but when their emotions were stirred, they would be burning hot like lava. Hee hee. Wang Jung could only smirk. Snowly laughed relaxedly. Would you be able to sell me a copy of your information card in accomplishing the Hail Cloud trial? That trial is very important to us. Beside that, there is also another hidden trial in the ice-cold forest known as the Ice Territory Trial. It has a very high difficulty level, and I'm not sure whether you would be interested to form a team with me. Speaking of trials, it was Wang Jung's expertise, and very quickly, his eyes lit up with interest. At least, they were brighter than when he was looking at Snowly. Snowly blinked her eyes. The corners of her mouth curved into a smile that was not a smile. No problem. I can give you the information card. But the Ice Territory Trial? What information do you know about it? Naturally, Wang Jung would not be too bothered about this. It is a trial where you are allowed to form a team with a maximum of 5 people, and to carry out the trial together. As compared to the Hail Cloud trial, the difficulty level is even greater, and it mainly requires cooperation. As compared to the scariness of the Hail Cloud trial, the restrictions of the Ice Territory trial were clearly more relaxed. At least, useful information could be gathered through the use of a multitude of tactics. Indeed, Snowly gave a thorough and detailed information card. For most of the checkpoints, you should have no issue with them with your strength. After Wang Jung looked through it, he frowned. The problem lies with the last checkpoint. Snowly nodded her head. The 10,000 Mirrors Maze, no useful information was ever received about it. On the information card, for all the checkpoints in front, a sure pass sequence of methods had already been figured out. Even though there were many challenges, but if the 5 people had the proper strength and cooperated properly with one another, they would surely be able to pass through all of them. Only for the 10,000 Mirrors Maze, it was entirely blank. According to my estimation, it is an infinite random maze. but so far, nobody has been able to pass it yet. Wang Jung suddenly laughed. Sure, it's just nice that I like difficult things. Snowly smiled sweetly. I knew you would like it, but let me warn you first, don't you dare pull me down. She was clearly joking about that sentence. Even Snowly also did not know what was happening, as after seeing Wang Jung she had become lively. Perhaps it was because in front of him, there was completely no need for her to disguise herself. Wang Jung gave a faint smile and nodded his head. So, when do we begin the trial? Of course, the faster the better. We must strike while the iron is hot. Snowly was a frank and straightforward girl. Wang Jung followed Snowly and they reached the headquarters of the Hail Cloud League. His first feeling was that there were really a lot of beautiful ladies. His second feeling was, as expected, the Hail Cloud Alliance did produce beautiful ladies in abundance. His third feeling, in the place where women were flourishing, men were indeed lacking. Eye candy. This was truly eye candy. Zhang Shan would probably like this place very much. If he encountered the beautiful ladies of the Hail Cloud Alliance, he would definitely give in. Ai Xiaolu looked at Wang Jung inquisitively. This person was the friend that Snowly had mentioned. This person seems very confident about himself. Don't you find his gaze rather strange? It's different from other men. Don't tell me that he is Snowly's boyfriend. This is still the first time that I had seen her joking together with a boy. It is really a little too passionate. Ai Xiaolu also nodded her head. I bet he would be able to hold Snow's hand. I bet he can't defeat Snow. Snowly's eyebrows were continuously trembling. A place with many women would definitely also have many topics. This was just woman's nature. Wang Jung was light-hearted and relaxed on the other hand and did not hear anything. That was a wise choice. As these conversations, even though they seemed to be secretive whispered conversations, but their volumes were actually so loud that the whole room was actually able to hear it clearly. Enough is enough. He is my friend Charcoal, and he is here to help us pass the ice territory trial. Ai Xiaolu, Reddington, and Defule, go get ready. In 30 minutes, we will begin our trial. The 5 of us will be a team. Snowly interrupted their conversation. Ai Xiaolu was stumped for words. In 30 minutes? Snow, don't tell me that you would be going for it too? Even though the punishment of the ice territory trial was not as severe at the Hail Cloud trial, one had to pay some fines for the first failure, but the greater the number of failures, the heavier the punishment would be. If Snowly was not able to pass through it, her punishment would be being banned from entering for a certain period of time. Charcoal was obviously not a nobody, as everyone had more or less heard a little about him. Blonde-haired Defule shot a glance at Wang Jung and said coldly, strength during life and death matches does not equate to the ability to pass the ice territory trial. This sexy goddess tactfully expressed her distrust in Wang Jung's strength. With a match record of 200 consecutive victories, to her, it seemed that it was a guy who was so bored that he had to use this way to court people's favor. His standard and attitude was just that, as true experts would not go and do such a childish thing. Reddington's expression was very free and at ease. However, his hostility towards Wang Jung was also no doubt the most obvious. He said, since he is recommended by Snow, we would naturally have confidence him. I hope that he can keep up with us. I will try my best to not cause any obstruction. Wang Jung laughed. Reddington gave an enthusiastic smile. His face with sharp and distinct features held a faint trace of arrogance. If being handsome was a sin, then his sin was absolutely unforgivable. In a place where beautiful ladies were produced in abundance, there was bound to be many handsome guys too. This was also one defining characteristic of the Hail Cloud Alliance. He looked at Snowly and said nothing else. It was evident that he was giving face to Snowly. Why don't we let Mr. Charcoal undergo a few tests that are related to the ice territory trial first? This would also be beneficial for the team, Defule said. They had already been preparing for the trial this time round for a very longer time, and it was extremely important. But Snowly had suddenly swapped a person out, and they were also not quite clear about the strength of the person. This was an extremely dangerous matter. Wang Jung laughed. He was about to agree to the tests, but Snowly shook her head. Nope, there is no need to put him through the trouble of the tests. I know his strength. That's all. We will begin the trial in 30 minutes. The order was issued, and the few of them stopped talking. Reddington's expression was full of displeasure, but he had to bear with it. But come to think about it, this was his own harem, of course he would be not pleased about the sudden arrival of a suspicious individual. Snow Lee looked around. Anyone still has question? Ai Xiaolu raised her hand. Me. Say it. Can Mr. Charcoal remove his mask for us to take a look? Is he a handsome guy? Wang Zheng's jaw dropped. Who actually told him that the beautiful ladies of the Hail Cloud Alliance were all like icy and cold? He must definitely sew that person's mouth shut when he get back. Let's go. Snow Lee waved her hand immediately and ignored Ai Xiaolu's question. Wang Zheng coughed. What's wrong? It's different from what I imagined. The girls of the Hail Cloud Alliance definitely looked frosty. However, only when you go near them, then you would realize that they were actually burning hot like flames. People who have no courage to come close to ice will not be qualified to woo us. Ai Xiaolu came close again. She was zestfully sizing up Wang Zheng. I heard that you were the madman of the life and death matches, the one who valued money over your own life. Are you really short on money? That's not really the case. Earlier on, I was a little tight on money and thus needed to make quick money. Wang Zheng laughed. He also looked at Ai Xiaolu engrossingly. Regardless of looks or disposition, she was both first class. But of course, it could not be compared with Snow Lee. To Wang Zheng, looks and figures were just one side of things, but being attracted to one's personality was still the most attractive thing to him. Ai Xiaolu looked into Wang Zheng's eyes, her heart skipped. How much money are you short of? Do you want me to lend some to you? Wang Zheng laughed. Thanks for your good intentions, but I think it might not be possible. Why not possible? Are you afraid that I can't afford it? Ai Xiaolu laughed. Wang Zheng had called for life and death matches, and he would at least have earned several $100,000s from each of the match. Hence, he would definitely not be bothered by small sums of money. Ai Xiaolu's family owns a bank. De Fule laughed, and added this comment. Really? Wang Zheng's eyes lit up. At the most crucial moment of the space project, the bankers over at the solar system's side had all tightened up their loan giving. It seemed that there were traces where the Kronos family had called the shots. Actually, the business world was a battlefield. Once you showed a weakness, the capitalists would definitely not be courteous with you. Of course, it's real. How much do you need to borrow? About 1 billion or so. Wang Zheng laughed bashfully. Even though Xiao Fei did not need so much, Marcus had secretly told him that the experiments had been continually failing, and they also had insufficient funds. The state of affairs must have been even more serious, otherwise, out of the self-respect of an old person, Marcus would never have disclosed the details to Wang Zheng. Even if Wang Zheng opened up life and death matches, it would also not have much value, as after all, the world of saints was not CT and there was not as much entertainment value. If people knew that they would lose, very little people would come. There would be an insufficient number of people, and it would also be of no value. Ai Xiaolu was startled for a moment. She had thought that at most Charcoal would only borrow several millions of dollars. She did not expect that once he opened his mouth, it would go so far as to $1 billion. Why do you need so much money for such a huge amount of capital? It was obviously not for his own personal consumption but for large-scale economic activity. Ai Xiaolu's family owned a bank, and her concept of money was different from ordinary people. Most people's concept of money was reflected on earning money, while Ai Xiaolu was more sensitive about spending money. To be honest, as long as it was not for gambling, there would be no difference between giving mentally sound person $1 billion or $50 million. This was simply because he would not be able to finish spending it all, or just spending it. I am not sure if you guys have ever heard of the King Space Technology Company. Wang Zheng touched his nose. Yes, we do know about it. But, what has that got to do with you? De Fule leaned her head to the side. Snow Lee was also looking at Wang Zheng curiously. King Space Technology Company was highly reputable in the Milky Way Alliance. It had enormous future potential, and once its technology matured, it might be possible for it to change the entire universe. Currently, everyone would want to grasp some shares of the company. However, the top management of the King Company had no intention of letting go of the shares. Presently, all the big capitalists only had one request with regards to the financing of King Company, which was for them to let go of their shares and to let everyone enter into it. But of course, their request would not as simple as getting entry. It was possible that they would take advantage of the opportunity to swallow up King. Wang Jung genuinely laughed. Actually, I have participated in the project before. Xiao Fei is my teacher and I am also holding some shares in it. If it is possible, we will go according to the regular rules, and the interest can be calculated as per usual. However, it's just that it might require a longer time for us to return the initial capital. You guys should also know that the thing about doing research is that it is very much like flushing money down the toilet. Ai Xiaolu took a look at Snow Li. She had probably gotten some sort of reminder from Snow Li and laughed. In your own name, $1 billion at an interest rate of 30%. However, we would be going in accordance with the rules. If you are unable to pay it off, you can try repaying it with your body, hehe. Actually, for this project, Ai Xiaolu had also only heard about it. Every year there were numerous of this type of big projects that were so-called said to be able to impact the development of mankind. However, if this person was Wang Jung, then it would entirely different. Even though Ai Xiaolu did not participate in the IG, but she had also been looking forward to meeting him for a long time. However, I have one condition. Can you remove your mask for me to see, student Wang Jung? Ai Xiaolu smiled. Snow Li did not know whether to laugh or cry. Xiaolu, stop fooling around, we would probably meet each other in school. Let's talk about this again after we finish the trial. And let's just focus all our energy on the trial for now. Dear student Snow, it's not good to side with outsiders, yeah. You lass, are you looking for a fight? Clearly as Snow Li's best friend, Ai Xiaolu had heard a lot about Wang Jung. But of course, there were still some secret talks that were between women and were to be kept between themselves. This person was the one who was able to make Princess Aina fall in love with him. The gossipy fire of Ai Xiaolu was raging. 30 minutes later, at the entrance of the Ice Territory trial, Wang Jung, who had just borrowed $1 billion from Snow Li, also did not know what to say. He had looked through the contract, and it was indeed straightforward and could be understood clearly. It seemed like Ai Xiaolu's family was really doing pretty well. He also could not do anything about it, as Marcus had opened his mouth. It could only have meant that the state of affairs was even worse, otherwise, he would not have come to find Wang Jung again. Wang Jung knew that very well in his heart. If he was really unable to repay the money, he would just do what he had to do. Even if he had to put up his equity shares as collateral, he would also not renege on the debt. It was just that he had not expected for someone who was once his opponent to be this frank and straightforward. Initially, he had just wanted to give it a try. If it was unsuccessful, then it was unsuccessful. But now, it was different, it was a must to succeed. Reddington had wanted to say a few words to mock him. If he had no money, then he should not have followed other people to set up some technology company. The result was him losing face and having to borrow money from people. However, he did not say anything in the end. He was not brainless, saying such thing would only lower his own standing. But that aristocrat's smile on his face was just saying, I have a lot of money, but I just do not want to lend it to you. The Ice Territory trial was divided into 12 territories, and it was also known as the 12 palaces of ice and snow. There was a different test in each of the palaces. For the first 11 territories, they followed the prescribed order in accordance with the information card, and they got through the daunting experience all the way without mishap. Actually, Wang Jung basically was just acting as a supporting role, as the coordination between everyone was very perfect. Reddington had Ice Ability X, but he also possessed very strong Ice Creation ability. Ice Arrows, Ice Shield, whatever Zhang Feng had said about micro-control was displayed over here brilliantly by him. He was indeed an expert, and no wonder he was in class Zon -1. Ai Xiaolu and Defule were both from class XUAN3, their strengths were also pretty awesome. On the contrary, Snow Li, who was their team leader, was probably the weakest among them. But of course, Snow Li's status had major significance. Her potential also far exceeded the rest. Both Ai Xiaolu and Defule also had ice abilities. It felt that they should had reached the high-grade C rank level, while Reddington most probably was an expert in the initial low-grade B rank level. No wonder he had an air of arrogance. His handsomeness could damage a country and cause suffering to the people, and his ability was also strong. He was the typical case of a tall, rich, and handsome guy. And naturally only Snowly was his target, otherwise why would he be squandering his time in the world of saints? Even though this thing was helpful in improving his energy, but after all, it was a virtual thing. Even though it was said that it could bring out cultivation techniques, many people still did not believe in it. And even more people were filled with doubt about the cultivation techniques itself. Actually, only the people from the solar system were able to accept the cultivation techniques. They were from the origin of civilization. While the rest had never took it seriously since the beginning, as they felt that this was only an amusing form for them to train their mental power. However, when they reached the 11th territory, there was an unusual change. A distinct weakness appeared in Wang Zheng's heart, and it almost resulted in everyone failing to succeed after all the work that had been seriously undertaken. Fortunately, Snowly used Icebound Nation and managed to let Wang Zheng cool down. This was simply something unimaginable. As someone with ability X, especially one who was able to enter the Elite Academy X, willpower was the #1 thing. A mere fantasy in a virtual world was able to cause Wang Zheng to lose his focus. This was really too. Wang Zheng was wearing a mask, and no one could see any of his expressions. However, he knew very clearly in his heart that all these while, there had been blind spots in his inner world. He was in a very perfect realm, full of confidence, steadiness and perseverance. However, the thing with Aina had indeed broken his focus. He firmly believed in his own perseverance, and in the end, he did not resist the illusion. Even though it was his own choice, but he did feel helpless inside. And to a practitioner, this could become a weakness. All this while Wang Zheng had not bothered too much about this, and that was why he had almost suffered a big loss during the illusionary trial. The last stage, and the 12th territory. Before the 10,000 mirrors maze, Defule looked at Wang Zheng in the eyes coldly. Even if she was under Snowly's order, she no longer had any trust in Wang Zheng. On the information card, the 11th territory was the easiest to pass. He knew perfectly well that it was fake, and if his willpower had been a little steadier, there would not have been any problem. But unfortunately, a problem just had to occur. She really did not understand why Snowly insisted on bringing him to the ice territory trial, and she even trusted him unconditionally. Ai Xiaolu and Reddington also did not look very happy. Snowly's Icebound Nation was one of the hidden trumps for them to break through the 10,000 mirrors maze, but unexpectedly it had been used in advance. Ai Xiaolu had heard of Wang Zheng's famous name before, but there were also plenty of such people who did not live up to their name in reality. It was a little unexpected for Snowly, but she did not care much about it. She looked at Wang Zheng with the same confidence as before. From now on, it would all depend on you. Wang Zheng removed his mask. They were all students of the Elite Academy, it did not matter whether he wore it or not. It was unexpected for him that a trial that he did not care much had actually allowed him to find the weakness of his heart, and he did care about it. However, with Wang Zheng's ability, as long as he was aware of it, it would no longer be a weakness. For the battles in front, it had used up quite a lot of energy of the other 4 members. Especially for Reddington who took the lead, he displayed the manners of a Mr. Perfect, and his situation was far from good. However, since everyone had already reached this stage, there was naturally no reason for them to retreat. And even if they had wanted to retreat, it was also too late. Wang Zheng, you shouldn't participate in this battle, Reddington said. Even if they were to fail, he also did not want this guy to cause disruptions. Wang Zheng could see Reddington's hostility. This guy was a monkey who wanted to be the Mountain King. He was desperately trying to guard his own territory. Actually, Wang Zheng did not have any other intention by coming here. He just had a favorable impression about someone who was once his opponent in the IG. However, his mistake just now had really caused quite a lot of trouble to everyone. Leave this stage to me, you can consider it as me making amends. Wang Zheng said. Snow Lee shook her head. What are you saying? Since we have all came here together, we are going to face this together. Even if we fail, it is also not a big deal. Ai Xiaolu and De Fule both felt that Snow Lee was being too excessive. They were her seniors, and it was their responsibility to care about Snow Lee's growth. However, this thing about love always caused people to get carried away easily, and even destroy their future. This was not a good thing. De Fule was already planning to find a time to straighten things out nicely with Snow Lee. The most crucial thing was that this guy was just not compatible with her at all, no matter which aspect she tried to look from. In terms of looks, the people from Earth definitely could not be placed on par with the Mr. Perfects from Hail Cloud. This was an innate thing, and their genes were the problem. The type of gentle features from the Asia region of the Earth was not very mainstream. Of course, the most important thing about guys was not their looks, but their inner qualities of strength or willpower. However, clearly this Wang Zheng before them was very terrible. How he was in the past was not really important, what mattered more was now. Perhaps Snow Lee had met too little experts, that was why she was smitten by this guy. One should know that real experts were those that were able to get a number ranking in the elite academy. Besides, there were those who had already graduated, they were the super experts that were at the top of the pyramid. In everyone's eyes, Snow Lee possessed the potential to enter the top 500 of the Ability X ranking. To be more precise, she would definitely have a chance to enter it. Wang Zheng shook his head. I will try it out for everyone first. You guys can act according to the circumstances. Wang Zheng is right. With his strength, it would be just nice for him to scout the situation, then we can make our judgment accordingly. This is the only possibility for us to pass through it. Reddington immediately said. This method was also currently the only way out. Snow Lee wanted to object, but seeing Ai Xiaolu and De Fule's expressions, she also had no better option. Wang Zheng was already walking through the passageway. The 12th level of the ice territory. There were mirrors everywhere in the world where Wang Zheng was currently at. A window popped up, and the intruder would have to smash a mirror as the problem that he had to solve would then appear inside the mirror. This was actually really unique. Wang Zheng conveniently chose one mirror. The mirror exploded, and a big tunnel entrance appeared. The darkness inside seemed like it was going to engulf the entire world of the ice territory. There was a pungent stench that came out from the tunnel entrance. At this moment, the world of the ice territory which they were at suddenly became dark, and only the rim of the tunnel entrance was emitting faint rays of light. But following immediately after was a gigantic monster that crawled out of the tunnel entrance unhurriedly. At this moment, Snow Lee and the three others also came in. When they saw the monster at first glance, the rest of them did not have much reaction to it. But Reddington's face had a huge change, and it actually became pale in an instant. The second transformation of the Abyss Zerg, we are done for, Reddington murmured. And once De Fule and Ai Xiaolu heard this, their faces also turned deathly pale. How did we run into this? Mecha, where are our mecha? Snow Lee was full of doubts. What mecha? We are done for, this isn't the Zerg that we commonly see. It is an insect that came from the abyss, and not only that, it is also the second transformation. Even if you give us our mecha, we might also not necessarily defeat it. De Fule and Ai Xiaolu were both from the Zon grade. At their level, they had already started to understand about the abyss, and had begun preparations to participate in the Battle of the Abyss. Of course, at the Zon grade level it was still mainly on learning and understanding. Actual battle was rare, but Reddington, as someone who was from class Zon-1, had participated in an actual battle against the Zerg before. Of course, they were only in the outer ring fighting against the first transformation insects, but that had already left him a deep impression. But over here, he had actually run into a second transformation monster. And the key thing was that they actually did not have any mecha. How were they going to fight? This second transformation Zerg belonged to the spider type. It had compound eyes all over and was a gloomy dark blue color. It had prickly hair all over, and this caused people to feel fearful. When Wang Zheng saw this insect, he had also recognized it as there was a specimen of it in Butcher's laboratory. The abyss was what everyone chose to address the place as it was really very similar to hell. The insects there were divided into 5 levels, from first transformation to 5th transformation. For example, the one which everyone had dissected was the first transformation, and also the most common. Insects could undergo evolution. However, the insects there were different from the ones in the Milky Way galaxy. It seemed that they did not just have one type for every one breed. They were very strict with their levels. The higher level ones were similar to insects, generals, but it was also different as there were no brain worms. It seemed like when the Zerg clan invaded the Milky Way galaxy, brainworms had evolved as a result of adaptation. And for these insects, their levels were completely decided based on their transformation number. According to the resources of Butcher, they had met with a 3rd transformation before. But in that battle, mankind had retreated. He did not say much, just that one insect had resulted in the change of tactics for the whole troop. For a long time, the fighting strength of insects had been dependent on their numbers. When faced with the mecha of mankind, they were not able to do much. However, coming to the abyss, the positions of insects and mankind had completely switched. Mankind became the one that had to rely on their numbers. This was also why it was a must to study the crucial points of the abyss, insects. In addition, mankind was also filled with limitless curiosity about this terrifying evolution ability of such insects. How could they change the characteristics of their race in accordance to their needs? This type of power, or genetic trait, where did it originated from? Or maybe, this was already not a hereditary issue, but the power to leave a lasting mark on life itself. All theory would be done in stages. It would be too shallow to say or use genetics to explain the powers of the Zerg clan. Just like the limitation of gravity in the past, a top prestigious biologist like Butcher had accorded importance to finding out why. He had said that this was the basis of existence for all the matter in the universe. Why were living things, living things? Why were non-living things, non-living things? Why had a stone become a stone? The dark blue spider had crawled out of the tunnel entrance completely, and this place had become a murky crypt. The escorts surrounding the Zerg clan this time round was different. There was only one of this insect, but it had already caused people to tremble with fear. It seemed like this was its territory, this was where it lived. Its height was only around 3 meters, while its body length was around 6 meters. Looking at its body type, it was not considered especially huge. If it was a situation where you had a mech, it would even be considered as small. However, Reddington, who was present, knew that for the abyss breeds of Zerg, their fighting strength could absolutely not be judged using their size. There's no chance of success, we need to get out of here immediately. Let me try to hold it back for a while, Reddington said in a heavy tone. Even with mecha, there would also be no chance of success, what's more under the current situation. It was simply a nightmare over here. Why would a second transformation Zerg appear over here? De Fule's face was full of disbelief. This should not have appeared at all. But Wang Zheng kind of knew why. This was very possibly due to his presence and that had triggered the Son of Saint trial. Wang Zheng was also not sure about the strength of this insect. However, from what he had saw in the laboratory, the formidable power of an ordinary first transformation adult was already quite astonishing. Even a larva also contained such great amount of energy, moreover an adult. This Zerg before him was not considered very big, and it was a second transformation. This insect was also a little strange. Usually Zerg would charge over immediately like a brainless housefly when it saw mankind, but it was actually relaxedly sizing them up. And only when Reddington roared then it started attacking abruptly. A huge shadow was seen pouncing over in a flash. It had to be said that Reddington, that Mr. Perfect, was still quite competent. He attacked immediately after the roar. Both of his hands were supporting the hard ice shield to defend against the attack. This was his creation ability of his ability X, but it was pierced through like a paper by the claws of the spider Zerg, and it directly pierced through Reddington. Reddington exploded into pieces. The power of one hit, it was like a lightning bolt. Instantly, Wang Zheng knew that the formidable power of this insect was absolutely not something that his physical body's strength was able to match against. There was simply no need for any tactics. Both Ai Xiaolu and De Fule also dashed over. However, the abyss spider Zerg did not know anything about having tender and protective feelings for the ladies. The two of them used their abilities to strike his Zerg, but it only produced weak sounds. Apart from infuriating the spider Zerg, it was absolutely incapable in causing any substantial injuries. This was why mankind themselves could not be compared with mecha. Bang bang. Two sounds, and I Xiaolu and Defule were already broken into pieces. There was absolutely no way for them to retaliate, and in an instant, only Wang Zheng and Snow Li were left. If it was any other time, it would probably be very suitable to murmur endearments in such a situation. Snow Li was not especially scared, as after all, this was only a virtual fantasy land. If she died, it would also just be an instant bit of pain and suffering. This was also not the first time, just that this process of waiting was a little disgusting. Many times, it was due to psychological stress, so Reddington's way might have actually been an optimal choice. Since you knew about it, of course it would be better to just get the pain over with, rather than to prolong the agony. In the temple, Reddington, I Xiaolu and Defule had already revived. The expressions of the three of them did not look good. They had not expected for such an encounter, and also, that Wang Zheng was simply useless. The three of them also realized that it was highly possible that due to the identity of that guy, he might had triggered the son of Saint Trial. The reason why Reddington did not attach importance to this place was because the world of saints was merely just a fantasy world. How was it possible for them to run into a second transformation Zerg under a situation where they did not have any mecha? Wasn't that hilarious? The reason why he was the first to attack was because he had wanted to display his courageous and decisiveness in front of Snow Li. Anyway, he knew perfectly well that he would fail, so why not get defeated more beautifully? Snow Li is the pride of our Hail Cloud Alliance. Looks like we should be more cautious about befriending people in the future. Xiaolu, your $1 billion might be squandered away on a bad investment. I Xiaolu frowned. The space project of the King Company is a project of excellent quality. Even if they are unable to complete it, there would also be people who would be taking over it. This business transaction is unlikely to go so far as to be a total loss. I Xiaolu was not a fool. No one would want to be engaged in a loss-making business. However, Wang Zheng really caused her to be greatly disappointed. It seemed like one should never have too high expectations for someone. The three of them were grudgeful. They could only wait for Snow Li and Wang Zheng to come out. If they failed this time, Snow Li would probably not be able to enter the world of saints for a very long while. The Hail Cloud Alliance might be superstitious or following blindly, but once their higher-ups issued an order, all of them were to give comprehensive assistance to help Snow Li improve her ability X. And Snow Li's speed of improvement was also really rapid. Facing such a situation, Snow Li already had no hope left. No matter how awesome Wang Zheng was, it would also be useless. If there was a Golden Wheel Battle King, perhaps there would still be some hope, as Snow Li really had a superstitious belief about Wang Zheng's Golden Wheel Battle King. It was exceptional, and using the word handsome would not be sufficient to describe it. However, when she saw Wang Zheng, Snow Li was shocked. Wang Zheng's expression was very calm, and he seemed to have no intention of giving up at all. Snow, later when the battle starts, retreat to a corner and subdue your breathing. This chap is very sensitive to ability X. Wang Zheng said. His gaze was fixated on that scary insect that was emitting gloomy rays of light, while that insect was also staring at Wang Zheng with a kind of strange light. A pair of small eyes staring against a pair of extremely large eyes. Bang! There were flames that suddenly burst out from Wang Zheng, and it instantly lit up the whole place. This also caused the Zerg to look especially fierce. The most scary thing was its gaze. It was full of cunningness. Snow Li still obeyed and retreated backwards. However, Wang Zheng's ability X was only at C rank and not as good as Reddington. His was best at operating mecha, but unfortunately there would be no mecha over here. However, just not long after, Snow Li's expression was filled with an indescribable sense of admiration. It was precisely this type of expression. Regardless of what was the situation, or who was his opponent, Wang Zheng just had this type of captivating expression. Even if he failed, he must also be a hero who had died standing. Actually, there was desire in Snow Lee's heart. It was an unrealistic dream of a girl. And as it happened, Wang Jung was the type who existed to satisfy her dreams in her life. Wang Jung started to move towards the spider Zerg, and the spider Zerg also started moving. The speed of both parties were both abnormally quick and violent. Snow Lee was also a powerful pilot. Naturally, she knew that if someone was good at operating mecha, his physical standards in battles would also not be bad. However, mecha masters did not equate to battle masters, and battle masters also did not equate to mecha masters. There were areas of interoperation among them, but they definitely did not equate to each other. However, Snow Lee became stunned very quickly. The attacks of the Spider Zerg were very quick and very ruthless, that strange pace was even more so deadly. As the movement of spiders was not like the movement of mankind, hence they had no blind spots. And especially for this type of Abyss Zerg, they were even more unfathomable. Dealing with mankind was no difference from catching small insects. Outside, Reddington also had not forgotten to show off a bit of his experience with his two schoolmates. In the Abyss, the Spider Zergs were relatively quite hard to deal with as they have no blind spots for their movements, and this had caused huge inconvenience to us as mecha warriors. When as human warriors are in battles, we tend to seek weakness in the enemy. However, they would not be blind spots at all for this type of Abyss Spider Zerg. A student from the first class was indeed different. Those in class XUAN3 were already very powerful, however, they still did not have any opportunity to get in touch with all these information. Defule and I Xiaolu naturally found it very admirable, but they already knew that the person whom Reddington liked was Snow Lee. Hence, unless they were looking for a lover, Defule and I Xiaolu were obviously not going to be so self-degrading. But they still admired him as Reddington was really quite brilliant. Weird, why aren't they out yet? I Xiaolu took a look at their team's situation. And as the mission was still ongoing, it was also reflected on their side. Could it be that Snow Lee is still fighting? Defule was also stupefied. With the fighting strength of that insect, it was definitely at the level where the enemy would be crushed instantly. On the other hand, Snow Lee was not fighting. She finally understood that Wang Jung's expression did not originate from a brainless lack of fear, but rather, it was because he was just not scared of his opponent at all. It was simply not possible to confront this Zerg directly. Its speed was quick and violent, its defense was astonishing, and moreover, its strength was not something that the physical body could contend against. For this type of fighting strength, even if you wanted to dodge, you would also not be able to do so. But for Wang Jung, he could. The steps of the Spider Zerg were really strange. Snow Lee knew very clearly that if it had been her, she would surely not have lasted for even 10 seconds. However, this Zerg had already been chasing after Wang Jung for a few minutes, and it had not even hit his sides. Wind Ability X. What Snow Lee knew was that Wang Jung possessed fire and cold ice abilities, as those had also brought him fame during IG. However, it had just been a short while, and now he had managed to grasp the Wind Ability X. Wang Jung's own speed was absolutely not high enough for him to contend against the Abyss Zerg. However, his steps were actually much more nimble and sharp as compared to the Spider Zerg. But at the crucial moment, he also needed to use his wind ability to speed up, and to start his attacks instantaneously. This was actually a good opportunity for him to practice his control of his ability X, and Wang Jung had to begin with his wind attribute. Snow Lee's eyes were wide opened. What kind of dodging method was this? She had never heard of it. Could it be a secret technique of the Earth's military? There were many movements, but Wang Jung did not turn his head back at all. It was like there was a pair of eyes on the back of his head, and it was extremely hair-raising every single time he dodged slightly. Snow Lee's heart was thumping fast and hard as she looked on. However, every time the Abyss Zerg just kept missing by a bit, and it had nearly cut Wang Jung into halves. But nearly and missing by a bit meant that it was just not enough. Wang Jung did not pull apart the distance. This was not reality. The further you tried to pull apart, the faster you would die. For gigantic body types, close range would actually become an obstacle. However, the movements of this Abyss Zerg were really shocking. It basically did not give Wang Jung any chance to strike back. Snowly was starting to get nervous. She knew that Wang Jung still had a unique skill, the hybrid abilities of wind and fire. And perhaps it would be possible for them to win by surprise. After feeling it out for several times, Wang Jung had already found out that the outer shell of this D*MN insect also possessed defense against ability X. Hence, for attacks to be effective, you must first destroy its shell. If there were mecha at this moment, it would have been a much better situation. The tyrannical attacks of mecha could split open the defense of the Zerg and allow the ability X to cause fatal injuries or deaths. But now, he could only try to think of a way himself. Wang Jung already had an idea. Under continuous teasing, the spider Zerg had finally been driven mad. An insect would always be an insect. Even if it was the most intelligent insect, it was still an insect. And once it became mad, it gave Wang Jung an opportunity to attack. The ground was pricked and it became a hole. In an instant, Wang Jung stepped on the leg of the spider and soared into the air, and flames suddenly engulfed it. There was a loud sound, and Wang Jung explosively jumped backwards. There was a sudden upsurge of whirlwind from his body. He waved the both of his arms, and two fire wheels started spinning. However, the flame attack just now was not to kill or injure, but it was to create a blind spot. After his continuous attempts to feel it out, he had discovered that flames would still adversely affect the eyesight of the Zerg. Snowly knew what Wang Jung was trying to do, and now what she had to do was to fight for time. She was a super genius born in the year of the Ice Dragon Dance. How could she had attempted nothing and accomplished nothing at this point in time? The tactics were very clear, a direct battle was not necessary but one merely had to restrict it. The Abyss Zerg was already charging over frantically, but Wang Jung was clearly not yet ready. Snowly had already used her unique skill once, and it probably would not be of much use on this monster anyway. But she was Snowly. She pressed the both of her hands onto the ground, and in an instant, a path of smooth ice mirrors was formed. They were basically a work of art produced by Snow herself. And sure enough, the spider Zerg started to slip. Naturally, this place was suitable for the formation of ice mirrors. Snowly's reaction could not be said to be slow. Utilizing ability X at the right moment was child's play. If one only sought to learn that skill, there would be no need to come to the elite academy. To learn to adapt to the situation was dependent on one's strength, and this was also the difference between mankind and the Zerg. Bang! This spider Zerg was also ruthless. Its claws slammed downwards, and the ice mirrors immediately broke. However, immediately after that, Snowly used it once again. But by using it twice in a row to create such large-scale ice mirrors, Snowly was already close to exhausting her full strength. The ice mirrors this time round was clearly thinner than the previous time, and the most crucial thing was that the learning ability of this Abyss Zerg was really astonishing. It immediately scratched it with its claws. As for Wang Jung's side, he was ready with his wind flame wheels. In the world of saints he could indeed do it routinely and with ease. It was much easier. Attack! Two huge wind flame wheels were rolling over towards it. The Abyss Zerg also stared blankly. Generally, insects would not run away. The fiercer it was, the more it would charge forward. However, this Zerg leapt into the sky instantly, and the huge wind flame wheels swept directly across. It missed. Snowly's face became even paler. It was an uncontrollable twinge of pity. It was so close. The spider Zerg who had dodged the fatal attack descended from the sky. There was a noise of explosion on the ground. And at this moment, the abyss insect seemed especially fierce, and it was crashing and charging towards the both of them. A sneer appeared at the corner of Wang Jung's mouth. "You idiot, did you think that I am a mere rookie?" The two wind flame wheels that were in the air made a U-turn. There was a slight collision, but they actually returned to attack the Zerg. The Abyss Zerg really did not think much of it. Even though insects were different from mankind, but they also had their own way of thinking. Missed attacks would mean that they were harmless. At this moment, the insect was charging towards Wang Jung frantically. However, student Wang swayed his finger relaxedly. Bang! In the midst of the disorder, the two wind flame wheels hit the spider Zerg right in its middle section. Snowly's snow-white face was somewhat bright red with excitement. What a tyrannical controlling power was this! The use of hybrid abilities was inherently classified as of the most difficult level. To be able to use it was already not bad, but Wang Jung could actually go as far as to control it. This was simply amazing. And the confident expression Wang Jung had when he swayed his finger lightly made Snow Lee's heart thump rapidly again. That was too cool. All these while she had despised those girls who were love-struck and chasing after celebrities, but now she would no longer despise others. This was because if one really met someone whom you liked and admired, one would really not be able to control your emotions. Bang! A violent explosion and air billows swept across. Both Wang Jung and Snow Lee were also blown away and flew backwards. Snow Lee dashed over happily. However, Wang Jung's face suddenly changed. He almost catapulted out. And holding Snow Lee, they promptly started rolling on the ground. Boom 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 boom. There were rows and rows of navy blue spurs on the ground. These were spurted out from the Abyss Zerg's mouth. That guy was still alive. At this moment the Abyss Zerg was really pretty battered. It had lost 2 legs, and a dark green liquid was continuously dripping out. On its back could be seen 2 huge cracks. It was this frightening defensive ability that had actually blocked the attacks. Snow Lee heaved a deep sigh. This was no longer a problem about Wang Jung's ability. It was impossible for mankind with no mecha to defeat this type of abyss insect. If there were mecha, even if it was an ordinary mech, just now that hit would definitely have been able to defeat this insect. Just that there were no ifs, and now they were going to be the ones who would be defeated. Snow Lee was being embraced by Wang Jung, and somehow, there was actually a romantic atmosphere. But unfortunately, Wang Jung did not felt the romantic atmosphere, and there was actually a type of burning passion in his heart that was rushing out. The more dangerous and extreme the situation was, the more his blood boiled, which became harder to restrain. Bonehead said before that there was such an emotion in mankind, and this only happened when one was in danger. Whoosh! Snow Lee was flung aside. Wang Jung launched his wind ability and drew back rapidly. I promised you that I would definitely let you pass this trial. There was no need to worry about her as Wang Jung's hostility was sufficient for the Zerg to ignore Snow Lee completely. At this moment, the Abyss Zerg was no different from the ordinary insects. It had gone completely crazy, and was charging over brainlessly. However, even such an attack was also unfathomable. Wang Jung could no longer use his wind flame wheels again, and there was no time for him to prepare at all. And even if he did prepare an attack, there was also no guarantee that he would be able to kill this monster. The weird thing was that even Wang Jung also seemed to have given up on resisting. He was staring blankly at the insect that was charging over. Even though the Spider Zerg was only left with 6 legs and that had affected its speed a little, this type of craziness made it look even more terrifying. But what Snow Lee saw at this moment was nevertheless the smile of confidence on Wang Jung's face. Wang Jung spread out his both hands. When he had come into contact with his hybrid ability, he had already wanted to try it. However, that wind flame wheel had almost caused his hostel room to be completely destroyed. So if he had attempted this move, he would probably have blown up the whole building with him along with it. But over here, there was this huge opportunity for him to try it. Whoosh, whoosh, there was a ball of icy flames in his left hand, and a ball of fiery flames in his right hand. Snow Lee was stunned. What was Wang Jung trying to do? Could it be that the so-called hybrid abilities had come about based on the theory of the 5 elements interacting with one another? But as a physics genius, Wang Jung wanted to try fusing elements that inherently opposed each other. This was the difference between nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. On the surface, combining them seemed to be able to amplify their power, but if they were in conflict, they would only counteract one another, and could even cause a disaster. However, Wang Jung was a madman in this aspect. The first time he heard of Hybrid Ability X, he had already been thinking of ways to execute it. However, even though he had problems with controlling the ability itself, his body was at least able to emit the ability X's at the same time. Regardless of whether they originated from the primordial regression technique or the blade technique, he could always control both at the same time, and his body was just a medium. However, when it came to fusion, Wang Jung was really not sure, as the most possible outcome of fusing conflicting abilities was dissipation or disorder. Wang Jung had thought of countless possibilities, but he had never tried them before, so why not try it at this crucial moment of life and death? The Zerg was already charging over, but Wang Jung did not move. He was waiting. He had to wait till the final moment, The moment when it was the most dangerous. The Zerg did not use its claws, but instead it opened its mouth big. It was going to swallow up the prey before its eyes. Wang Jung gave a faint smile. This was the moment. He clasped his hands together suddenly. Instantly, glaring rays of lights suddenly appeared in the temple's main hall. Snow Li lost her line of sight all of a sudden, and she only remembered Wang Jung's smile, and his words of, "I promised you." There was a loud sound that shook heaven and earth. The three people who were waiting were anxious and the anxiousness was driving them crazy. The three of them all had bad feelings, especially for Reddington. What was that scoundrel Wang Jung trying to do? Don't tell me that he wanted to. Under a certain kind of circumstance men would always have weird thoughts. Once it came to his mind that Wang Jung might have been rude to Snow Li, Reddington almost went mad. That guy was a new student at the academy. D*MN, I must kill him. While Ai Xiaolu and De Fule were thinking of something else. Could it be that there was still some mysterious level in the ice territory and the two of them had managed to escape? But no matter what, there should be an end to it. What was going on? Could it be that they had already left the world of saints? How would that be possible? We have been keeping watch over here. Reddington was already fuming with rage between gritted teeth and had lost his usual gentlemanliness. That damn scoundrel, Huang Great Right? Don't ever let me find him, otherwise. At this moment, a ray of light appeared. Wang Jung had come out. The faces of the three of them all looked ghastly. They were glaring at Wang Jung tenaciously, like they wished that they could destroy Wang Jung. Wang Jung laughed helplessly and logged out immediately. The mission was accomplished, and he was not interested about the things that were going to happen next. The things that had happened during this trial was unexpected. The loophole of his psychological world had nevertheless shown up, but that was nothing for Wang Jung to grumble about. Bones' training was meticulous and there was not one loose thread. However, he was a robot, while Wang Jung did not think of himself as a robot. The feeling of being injured was actually pretty good. After a round of battle, he was still left with some energy to return back to his bed. Wang Jung's face was still a little pale when he got back to the hostel, but he had a little smile on his face from the beginning to the end. Reddington and the rest were totally furious. How could that damn idiot still carry a smile? He was like a spoiled piece of meat ruining a whole pot of soup. What was this? We must be cautious when it comes to making friends, Reddington said. While Ai Xiaolu and De Fule did not think too much, where was Snow Li? In just a moment, a ray of light flashed and Snow Li appeared. Now, there was a question. Everyone else came out because they died, while Snow Li came out alive. Snow Li, you are finally out. We were so worried. Ai Xiaolu immediately walked up to her. Usually the world of saints would not have much danger, but those who somewhat had experiences all knew that it could bring about a little psychological harm over here. And they were afraid that there would be some mishaps. Snow Li smiled and shook her head. I'm all right. What all right, Snow? Next time it would still be better for you to keep a distance from such people. Most of the people from small regions are all greedy, lecherous, and have great ambition but little talent. Reddington finally found a chance, but hitting a person who was down at this moment was absolutely not a trait of a Mr. Perfect. Snow Li just laughed, and De Fule only noticed now that something was not quite right. She stared blankly at Snow Li. How was this possible, that you came out alive? Ah, look guys, the trial was actually completed. Ai Xiaolu also discovered a new world. Her face was full of disbelief. Reddington looked at his own trial status. It had indeed been completed. But how was this possible, that Zerg? God, what exactly happened? Don't tell me that there was some hidden secret inside there, De Fule asked curiously. Snow Li smiled and shook her head. The trial is completed. This would definitely be unforgettable in my lifetime. Don't tell me that. It was Wang Jung? Ai Xiaolu was stammering a little. That is not possible. His ability X was at best AC rank. And under a situation with no mech, even if he was exceptionally talented, it would also be impossible for him to defeat a second transformation abyss insect. He was unconvincing at the front, but he became resolute and decisive at the back. They were all students of the Zon grade and had already started to understand the fighting strength of these abyss insects, and they were very clear about the disparity between mankind and them. Xiaolu, remember what I told you before? That he is a guy that is capable of doing anything. Snowly's expression was full of splendor. This battle had left on her a very deep impression, and this type of shock was incomparable to IG. That man possessed an unparalleled and overbearing confidence, and he was definitely a responsible person. This was a real man. Reddington's face looked pretty bad. He simply could not believe how that could be possible. Even though he himself was rapidly dispatched by the opponent, there was definitely another side of the story to it. But Snowly did not intend to say much. Wang Jung really trusted her, and she would not easily expose the abilities of another person. Actually, even if the last attempt was a failure, it was still considered as a victory in the world of saints, as it ended in mutual destruction. Wang Jung's own strength and controlling ability was still not sufficient to reach that stage. However, having this first attempt at taking a risk, Wang Jung was also tempted. It was evident that fusing conflicting abilities was not impossible. Zhang Shan came back from his training. He saw that Wang Jung was closing his eyes to rest and was not in a good condition. "What's wrong, dude? Are you sick?" Wang Jung opened his eyes and laughed. "I'm just hungry." Zhang Shan stared blankly. "You are in luck. Since we are bros, I will whip something up for you to eat." Wang Jung was surprised. He had initially wanted to go out for food. "You know how to cook?" "Don't make it sound so tacky. Cooking is an art. To become a Mr. Perfect, you would have to be capable of doing anything. And to conquer a woman, you would first have to conquer her stomach." Zhang Shan said proudly. "Anyway, there are really many beautiful ladies over here. Some of them I had seen them during IG, and they are really popular. Nevertheless, we must be careful of those guys from the Zon grade. Suckers, they are old cows trying to feed on young grass, actually trying to pick up female juniors. Is there still the natural order of things? Are the female juniors for them to pick up? How do they let us as their male juniors live then?" Actually, this was also the norm. For those of the same batch, their standards were all about the same. Even if they were slightly more powerful, they would also not be too powerful. However, the seniors from the Zon grade and above would appear to be especially powerful and knowledgeable. They were also slightly older and gentlemanly, thus, much tastier than unripe little apples. And after all, girls also tend to mature earlier. "Why, did you find another target?" Wang Jung sat up, looking at Zhang Shan, who was being really busy. In actuality, Zhang Shan only knew how to cook noodles. "After making my professional assessment, the most eye-catching ones in our college are still Mo Ling and Snowly. Mo Ling herself is from Roland Garros, a descendant of the elites. She is considered to be the best of mankind, and if you are together with her, it will be beneficial for your descendants." Wang Jung almost spurted out. "Was it necessary for you to consider things that far?" Zhang Shan nodded his head very seriously. "I am always very serious when it comes to doing things. All romances without marriage as the goal are all immoral behavior. How can I tolerate such immoral behavior? Snowly is also not bad, just that she is a little cold. The ladies of the Hail Cloud Alliance are too proud and pampered. I still prefer those who are more passionate." Wang Jung did not know whether to laugh or cry. He felt that Snowly was not too bad. "Let me tell you this, actually, people should really live life by taking things less seriously. Look at me, I changed my profession when I said wanted to. So what if I am getting along well or not? The lifetime of a person will be over in a blink of an eye. There's no need to take it so seriously," Zhang Shan said. "Since when did you change your course to psychology?" Zhang Shan flung back his head suavely. Everything's all good about you, but it's just that you have too great a sense of responsibility. I often heard that it is easy for geniuses to feel that they need to save the world, but you on the other hand, you're really taking it to the extreme. My ass, stop shaking your head, your hair is dropping into the pot." Zhang Shan shook his head again. "I'm telling you the truth. This was also the case during IG. Even though you were the team leader, but our victory should not be just your own responsibility. It doesn't matter whether we win or we lose, as long as everyone had tried their best. But of course, as the team leader, you did have more things to consider about. It is also the same for your love life. Like what I had just said, as long as you are serious, you should not display immoral behavior and should pursue a romance wholeheartedly. Furthermore, everyone who is alive are all independent and strong-willed. There's no one who cannot live without you. If you have the time to think about others, why not spend more time to think for yourself? The purpose of you being alive is for yourself, not for this, that, or anyone else. Wang Jung was very quiet, and he did not refute Zhang Shan's words. So, don't worry about the country and the people all day long, and also don't feel that you are indebted to anyone. A relationship between two persons is a mutual thing. If things don't work out, accept it and move on. You are still young. Towards the end, Zhang Shan had started to joke around again. Damn it, you made yourself seem like an expert. I just get over things more easily than you. Come, try my noodles that was made with love. A big bowl of hot and piping noodles was placed in front of Wang Jung. How did you know? Wang Jung asked abruptly. Zhang Shan twitched his mouth. You are like a damn stone, smelly and stiff. Other than being a pre-debut rookie in relationships, what else could have possibly made you look as if it's the end of the world? The words used were rough, but the truth was not. Actually, what Zhang Shan said was right. A relationship involved both parties. There was no one person who was right and no one person who was wrong. Wang Jung nodded. He was convinced. Even though I am very handsome, but you should not overly idolize me. Zhang Shan was pretty cocky. Wang Jung's heart was a little touched. As for some things, the person involved might not be able to see as clearly as those outside and would need someone to straighten things out for him. Wang Jung took a big mouthful of the soup and noodles ferociously. Peef, noodles were spat out. To be honest, Wang Jung was definitely not considered as someone who was picky about food, but these noodles. Zhang Shan slapped his forehead suddenly. Crap, I mistook sugar as salt, vinegar as soy sauce. Oh no. How could I have added cola? Wasn't that cooking wine? Wang Jung's face expressed a gamut of emotions. Zhang Shan was very understanding and gave student Wang a pat. Child, such is life. It is filled with sorrows and joys, and it is richly colorful. This is the beauty of life. I am using this bowl of noodles to straighten things out for you. I hope you will be able to realize this. You don't have to thank me too much. After finishing what he wanted to say, Zhang Shan immediately took his leave. Him preparing a meal? More like he needs a meal prepared for himself. How could real men go into the kitchen? Snow Lee handed over the trial mission in the temple. For the whole journey, Reddington looked as if he had been struck by lightning. As for Ai Xiaolu and De Fule, they were in high spirits. It was a totally opposite attitude. Reddington despised Wang Jung and the girls in his heart. As expected, women did not have any standards. 2 minutes ago, both Ai Xiaolu and De Fule were still criticizing about Wang Jung together with him. But in just a while, Wang Jung had become like a god to them. They could not wait to give themselves to him. SL*TS. Ai Xiaolu and De Fule's hearts were itching to know what had happened. Even if they cracked their heads, they still could not imagine how Wang Jung could have won, as it was simply impossible for a C-rank ability X to break through the defense of the Abyss Surg. It was unsolvable. But as it was, this had happened. Reddington had some guesses in his heart. It was most likely that there was some trick to it. All trials could be passed and it was just a matter of which method to use. It was most likely an unexpected success for that lucky B** starred, as it was absolutely impossible for him to have defeated the Zerg directly. Just that the enamored look of Snow Lee had made him jealous and also greedy. The girl had fallen in love, but it was not because of him, and to think that he had always been there for her for nothing. This Wang Jung, he must think of a way to teach him a lesson. He was merely an idiot from class HUANG 7, yet he dared to snatch his woman. But of course, he would not be so foolish to do the job himself. After all, he was from class Zon 1, and he would still want to look good in the eyes of the others. Inevitably there would be a plan in a girl's heart, and Ai Xiaolu had already thought of a way in her heart. Wang Jung had borrowed lots of money from her. Even though her family was wealthy, but she herself was not as wealthy. This was her dowry, so naturally she should be more concerned about it. Hence, it was inevitable that she would be having more interaction with Wang Jung. Lear and Luo Fei had transferred to the Zon Grades Academy. Anywhere where Wang Jung could be found was detrimental for Lear's plans. That guy always had a knack for messing up his plans. Hence, Lear decided to change his way of thinking and development. At the current stage, growth was more important than confrontation. Therefore, before having absolute certainty in victory, Lear still decided to keep a certain distance from Wang Zheng. Recently, Lear had been somewhat depressed. He had come to the elite academy for quite a while, but everything here was different from what he had imagined. The kind of freedom that he had on Earth was gone forever. Over here, nobody cared about the Kronos family. If he wanted to stand out among his peers, he would need to rely more on his own intelligence and abilities. One thing was the same for both Lear and Wang Zheng, that it was most crucial for them to seize the opportunity to improve their abilities. His plan to target Wang Zheng was basically considered a failure. As to whether he had did Wang Zheng a favor, Lear would never admit it. He would always be the winner, and never the loser. While Luo Fei was indifferent, regardless of where Lear would be going, he would be following him. It was different from the competitive stress that Lear felt. Luo Fei was always ready to adapt and was austere with no selfish desire. In fact, Luo Fei was not a fool. Lear had just recently met with a setback. Over here, most big nations would have their own association of townsmen, and when they go out to the different parts of the Milky Way alliance they would still be a powerful force. However, the solar system did not have that, and Lear had wanted to take the lead and give it a go. But the result was that no one responded to him. It was really sad.